Pia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, and the conversation we were having before we recorded was really great. I felt like I should have hit record before, probably like 10 minutes before. We should have just like let that thing roll. Really good B-roll. But I'm glad we're jumping into it now. You know, for the I want to kind of tee up this conversation really around authentic brand building. It's something you are passionate about. I've seen a lot of your content on Twitter. I resonate a lot with your messaging around starting within you, building something outward. You know, for those out there that are joining us today about brands and about messaging, you know, I want to hear your thoughts about what you're seeing in the current landscape with entrepreneurs in brand building and messaging. What are you seeing out there that you feel like is a struggle? And what do you feel like is a trend? What do you feel like is happening for us?
Well, that's an interesting question. What am I seeing? I mean, there's a third leg I'm going to put on that. It's also what I'm seeing in my clients. So I'll touch on that too.
Yeah, please.
They're also founders and visionaries building.
Mm-hmm.
What am I seeing out there? I do see, whether it's the rise of ChatGPT or different AI tools, I am seeing sort of a desire for more authentic expression. And you can tell and feel someone's flavor. Because essentially, vulnerability for me is what builds trust and connection. And it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. I mean, we talk a lot about authenticity, but what does that even mean? It's become a buzzword. I almost don't want to use it anymore. I'm trying to find another word. And for me, it's kind of vulnerability. Because when you're vulnerable, not just for the sake of, I don't know, sharing wounds, but sharing wounds in service of. So it's like, this is something that I experienced, and it shaped me, and this is what it gave me, and this is what I'm trying to impart to you. And I think it takes so much courage, and that's such a gift to give, because, you know, we all go through our shit. We all have our scrapes and our bruises.
Oh, we certainly do.
And that's what also makes us who we are, as well as all of the beauty. We're a combination of that. And I think as we build our business or our brands, people are looking to better understand, like, who are you? What do you stand for? How did you get here? What's your ethos? How do you go about building? And a lot of these kind of are rooted or anchored in your own personal experience. And at the end of the day, this is an old adage, but people, you know, they don't necessarily buy ideas or projects. They buy from people, you know, so it's someone that you connect with. So you can have like the best process, program, course in the world, but if someone doesn't feel connected to you, they're not going to buy it, right? And it's not just about sales, but it's about building meaningful connections. So I think this is something that I'm seeing more of a desire for out there. And I'm also seeing that really successful brands that's what they're doing. They're a part of sharing their own life experiences, the rubber meets road moments, the scuffs and all of it in service of, in connection to their message. That's something.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one thing you said, which was I want to dive into a little bit, is ethos. And the importance of ethos when it comes to building something of significance for the individual. I think, and this observation comes from, and my question comes from the aspect of what I'm seeing also, which is that entrepreneurs, coaches, brands, individuals, solopreneurs, you name it, are getting very much caught up in this rat race of, I have to build this $1 billion company. I have to be a unicorn startup founder. I have to have something that's so significant that the world will remember me for all eternity. And I think people are getting so caught up in that mess. And I call it a mess because so many people are just jumping in and trying to replicate and just be this person of significance because of this huge business. You mentioned ethos and the individual's ethos. How important is it for someone to have an ethos in their brand?
Can I revert with a question? I know that.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, please.
I actually have a question. So based on, because you just said something that felt quite powerful, so I have a question for you. What do you think is driving that?
I think it's people trying to find their own significance. And I think we're really big into labels right now. I think people want to have an identity and be known for something and be a part of a community or be part of this group here. We talked a little bit about, before recording, tribalism and what's happening online is people are living in these small containers or these echo chambers, and people are having these messages reinforced into them, which is shaping and forming their beliefs. And outside of those echo chambers, I think people do feel lost. I think people feel like that they don't know really who they are without that reinforcement of the message. So what I find is that I think in business specifically, people are thinking $1 million isn't what it used to be. Being a 6-figure entrepreneur isn't what it used to be. I can't do 6-figure years anymore. I have to do 6-figure months or I'm a failure. And it's also this world of extremes. I think people are seeing black and white a lot more. It's like you're either successful or you're not. You're either rich or you're not. And if you're not rich, you can't give advice. And you're pouring from, I think a lot of people are pouring from empty cups.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
That's a great, no, thank you for sharing. I think that lands. And for me as well in that is, there are different things that are the operating system behind that is also, there's a lot of fear.
Yes.
Fear of like, and the unknown. So fear of, am I going to make it? Am I making it? Am I validated? Is this right? Is this right for me? Am I going to survive? Am I going to be safe? There's a lot of things that drive that, more and more and more. Also our system. We're steeped in it. We're steeped in this idea that there's always more you can do. There's always more money you can have. That you can be your best self. I'm actually with that best self. Like, just be yourself. Just work on connecting to who you are. Don't worry about the best part. It will follow. What if you're already your best self and your job is simply to be more you? That's it. You don't have to be other than you. You just have to be more you. And to do that, you have to discover what's meaningful to you and what's fueling you. What stories are fueling you? Are they yours? Are they inherited? Are they generational? Are they your parents? Are they societies? Are they your tribes? Or are they yours? Are they your beliefs? And what's really motivating you? And I think that's a lot of beautiful self-exploration that requires space. That's another one. Requires time, requires space. Space that in the world you just described, we don't give ourselves often, right? It's always, you have to be busy. Busy is a badge of honor. And what is actually required to find the answers of what success looks like for me? What is my truth? Speaking of live your truth, as I look at that, what's the kind of company I want to build? What is meaningful in this life to me? What is a life well lived? Hey, that requires space. That requires reflection. That requires stopping. Stop for a minute. Get off the ride. Trust that you'll be all right, that you can take a minute. I mean, what kind of life is it that we don't allow ourselves to stop because we're afraid we won't get back on again? I mean,
oh, that's so good.
So I think those are the things that come up as I hear you speaking. And that's why for me in what I do, I think there's so much power in combining coaching and creativity. Because like most of the time, we're what gets in our way. It's not something external, it's something internal. And so really getting curious about what really motivates you. What do you need right now? It's such a good question. Like, what do I need? How often do we stop to even ask ourselves that? What am I even building? What does it look like? And then build the thing. And maybe the thing that you might build looks very, very different than what you thought it would look like when you actually just stop to reflect on what's really meaningful to you.
It's interesting. Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Just to end, but then what you end up building is a palace and not a prison. Because if you build something that's not true to you, that doesn't feel right, that's a replica of what other people are telling you success is, and if you're doing it in a way that burns you out, that makes you exhausted, where you don't get a chance to really enjoy the fucking life you have, then I'll call that a prison. And then you're teaching yourself that, I can only be successful if I build in this way. So there are lots of knots to untie. Like, start building a palace. First, like, be the architect. What does a palace look like? right? And then how do you want to build? It's not only what you're building, but how do you want to be as you build? I think those are such important questions in order to live a fulfilling life. Because a lot of, I don't know what the stat is, Mike, and maybe you do, but a lot of like billionaires, people, they're not necessarily happy.
Yeah, that's
They're
so
not
interesting.
necessarily satisfied. It's not money.
Yeah, there's a stat. I don't know what that stat is. I'll have to go do some research after this, but I know it is like, I do know that there is a stat out there, and I'm going to like loosely say this. It was like, let me start over again. I know there's a stat out there that is really about the happiness of people when they make an income of like $100,000 doesn't go up.
Yeah.
At all. Like, or there's no like significant rise to this. No. And I think something you said about the palace prison, this kind of duality where people feel like, you know, I'm in this prison, but I want to build the palace, but I can't get out of my own prison that I created for myself. You did say something about the fear of unknown that I wanted to unpack with you. And that fear of unknown to me is that, you know, this all sounds great in a lot of ways for a lot of people, where they go into this mindset or they go into this reinvigoration or this inspiration that they have where they go, oh my God, this sounds so great. Like, yes, let's do it. Let's build this thing. But the fear of the unknown is so real with a lot of people when they're building something on their own terms, because what comes with that? For example, you see it on Twitter or X, you see it on Instagram and other social media platforms where people put out content and messages that they feel resonate with them. And then they put it out there, and then there's the trolls, there's the critics, there's the judges. And when they get that, those messages start creating these feedback loops of, oh, what if that episode wasn't as good as I thought it was? Or maybe the quote card that I posted on Instagram wasn't that great, or the tweet I just wrote wasn't as killer as I thought it was. In your work, how do you help clients, entrepreneurs, your audience online navigate the fear of the unknown in building their brand and building the thing that they want to build?
That's a big question, and I have like two different avenues I can take to answer
that. Go wherever feels good to you.
Let's park the fear of the unknown, and then let's go back to like, what if I post that and I get judged, or, you know, share the thing and there's crickets.
Yeah, the criticism. Yeah, let's go there.
Criticism. Let's just go there for a minute. I think it's really important at times when you create to check your motivation. What motivates you to create and share? And if it's connected to sort of your purpose, or if you prefer the word vision, or if it's connected to a sense of generosity, or just play and experimentation and creativity, like I'm creating, yes, to build and to engage and to connect, but also connected to giving. And if it resonates with one person, hurrah. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
If because my intention is not to go viral. My intention is, you know, it depends what your intention is. What's your intention behind sharing? I think getting clear on why you create and why you share, and making sure that's aligned with something that's really meaningful to you and not just because outcome, yeah, we're humans. We love validation. But one easy way to you know, assure unhappiness and dissatisfaction is being overly attached to an outcome, especially in creativity. Like, just creating for the sake of art is there's so much joy in that. And then if you want to add like creating for building a business, just creating with the idea that you're giving and sharing. If one person is impacted, fantastic. If more, great. If no one, hey, at least you had the courage to put yourself out there in service of, rather than, this is what helps me actually, like coming on this podcast. Why am I here? I'm not here to show and prove. I'm not here to perform. Hopefully what I say resonates with one person. If not, hey, I'm courageously showing up. I'm showing up with the hopes that it has an impact. And I think that liberates. It's liberating.
Yeah.
Because then, and by the way, if you get trolled, that means that's good. It means you're getting attention. That means you're resonating. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. It's like, it's hard to swallow, but you're building your capacity. You're building your capacity to be able to really speak what feels true to you without letting other people silence, edit, censor you. So that's okay. You're going to have more. It comes with the territory. The more
Yeah.
the bigger you are, the more the critics and the more the cheerleaders. That's just how it goes. So anyway, that's my first, like, how do you deal with the fear of criticism? It's like, well, first check yourself. What's your motivation behind creating and sharing?
And one thing you said, Pia, that I love is the building capacity. And to add on to that, it's almost like the building of the capacity to navigate the tumultuous times that do happen to us when we build a business or we build a brand or we build something meaningful in that. It's the more critics, the more judges, the more people that are making comments about your looks, or you don't know what you're doing, and all this invalidation that comes with those online platforms. I think the building of the capacity to navigate the tumultuous times, to weather the storms, I think is so valuable for us today, because I think what it does is it keeps us from being so expansive and like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this, and there's always two sides to expansiveness and contraction, right? And the expansiveness is like, everything's amazing, we're all connected, it's so cool, but that can give distraction, that can take you off the thing that you want to build, where you're trying to, I'm sure you've seen this with entrepreneurs. There's entrepreneurs who are building one company, maybe two, and that's all they're doing. They're staying in their lane. And then there are entrepreneurs who are starting a business every other week. And they just love that cycle. They're like the building aspect of this. But I wanted to contribute to that because I thought it was so interesting that the more trolls you get, it's like you're building your capacity to navigate those tumultuous times. But please continue on the second aspect.
No, thank you for sharing that, because I also practice, like, building your capacity is also your nervous system capacity.
Yeah.
So how do you regulate yourself? How do you regulate yourself when you get, flight or fight or freeze mode gets activated? And that's so important to kind of develop tools that work for you. They're all different types of tools, whether it's hugging your dog, or meditating, or journaling, or taking deep breaths, or sensing what's around you, getting deeper into presence, and just learning how to build your capacity for being able to share and to receive and to create. I think creativity, when it comes to public sharing, that's also a big capacity builder. So for some people, you might see someone who's super prolific and you're like, why are they, how the hell are they able to publish all the time? And like, it's a newsletter a day, or I don't know how many podcasts, and they've built their capacity to get there. They might have been doing this for years. Maybe they started off with one post every month. Who knows? No one knows, So it's just about loving your lane, staying in your lane, and understanding that it's all part of your process. It's all part of your growth. That's where comparison can take us way off track. We don't see that. Back to authenticity. We don't see the behind the scenes. We don't see often like what it took to get there. We just see the beautiful, polished, golden result. And that's problematic, because it might have taken, who knows what, 10 years? I love those stories so much because they feel so real to me, because they are. It's like, no, someone didn't just have a one-hit wonder. There is work behind the curtains that went on. There were dark nights of the soul. There were trials and tribulations and joys and celebrations. It was a whole package. But we often don't hear about that, in business especially. So capacity building, important, and also recognizing your own, and that it's your own journey, and you never know what someone else has been building towards.
A question about money, but go ahead. You had something.
No. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Money.
I know. We all love money, and it doesn't matter. We all need money, and we all love money. But something I wanted to unpack with you is being in this world as a consultant, especially with building brands and creativity. The brand building is very much more art than science, right? There is a formula to it, but it's a lot of feeling. It's a lot of trust. Recently, I saw a clip online about Steve Jobs talking about what brand was, and he boiled it down to trust. And after he had answered with trust. He said that Apple looks at their brand as a bank account. And so every buying and customer experience is a deposit or a withdrawal. And when somebody has a positive customer experience like this, the iPod, the iPhone is amazing, it's a deposit into the brand account. When someone has a bad buying experience, it's a withdrawal. And then that means they're losing that. And they always are thinking about, how do we create a better buying experience? How do we create better products? And they're mastering that. And I thought it was so beautifully articulated. And sure, I could go down the Steve Jobs rabbit hole. I can go down the Nike rabbit hole. Every single entrepreneur I've always encountered goes, building this brand is great, but what about the money? What about, how do I build this brand if I'm not making the money that I want to make? Or what if I build this thing and it's so true to me and it's authentic and it feels good, but then I don't make the money that I want to make? How do you help people navigate the energy of money when it comes to brand building?
Oh, that's another big question. These are good. You have some meaty questions. So, well, I always feel like I have to unpack your questions. I have to pull them apart.
Please.
So
Yeah.
money is so interesting. It's so interesting that we just made it up, right? Mm-hmm. It's a made up thing. Like, we made it up. Like, especially as it was removed from the gold standard. It's just, we just made it up. Anyway, I think money is a symbol. Money is a symbol for something that we believe in. Money is a signal. Money is so fascinating. It's the meaning that we give to money, the value that we put on money. I ask myself this question. I ask my clients this question. I think it's a really good one. Like, if you had $10 million, let's just say I wrote you a check, you got $10 million, it's in your pocket right now. What would you do differently? Or what would you keep doing? It's such a good question, because when you remove money out of the equation, we can get to some truths. Like, what are you doing because it's very meaningful to you in your business, or what are you doing because you think it's going to make you money? Nothing wrong with making money. I would just argue, make money doing the thing you love. And maybe it might take longer to make that money. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But wouldn't you want to spend more time building what you love and maybe have it take a bit longer to hit the jackpot, whatever that looks like? Maybe that is the fucking jackpot. I don't know. That's for each person to decide. Like, what is money to you? What is success? Like, let's even forget about money. What does success mean to you? If you think ahead to the end of your days, you're old and people are celebrating you, you're on a porch, you're looking out, your grandkids, your people, everyone's sending cards, people you don't even know. What are they thanking you for? What are you celebrating about your life? Like, what does it look like to you? What is success? And it's so interesting, because I think a lot of us are sort of, I don't know if it's programming, but believe that once we have money, everything's okay. Everything's going to be all right. We're going to be happy. We've hit the mother lode. It's great. Life, that's somewhere over the rainbow. When we get there, everything's going to be fantabulous. That's not been my experience in terms of what I've seen in the world, what I've experienced myself or with my clients. It's not just the money. It's what the money enables you to do. It's the feeling money gives you. That's usually what actually it's about behind any real goal. It's the feeling. So what is the feeling that it gives you? For most people, it's the feeling of freedom. They feel free. Well, there's a lot of ways you can start doing things now without the 10 million that will make you feel free. It's just kind of disconnecting some of those thoughts. Or those
it's like the security aspect. It's like, and the money also creates security too, which is so interesting. Yeah.
Sure, it's a feeling of safety. Money creates. Yeah. Back to fear and uncertainty. Money is the sense that, well, if I've made the money, then I must be successful. Then I must be safe. Then I must be secure. But the truth of the matter is, anything can happen at any moment. It's scary, the world. We're on a rock spinning at 1,000 miles per hour across one of 150 billion galaxies. Hey, I get it. It's fucking scary. It really is, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And of course, like, whether it's routine, whether it's money, there's a desire to feel safe, to feel secure. But the truth is, anything can happen at any time, and you don't control that. I don't control that. Anything. the best thing, you can meet the love of your life, in a library, or you can have air conditioner drops on your head, whatever it is, it's anything. So the only thing you control is how you creatively respond to life. That's it.
I love that.
Life will throw stuff at you. You get to choose how you respond to it. That's totally within your choice. That's within your agency as a creative being. You get to choose. So back to fear, it's like, I think one thing that really helps me is thinking of death in the universe. Like, my mother passed away in 2021 suddenly, and that was such a big shock to the system. It was, of course, heartbreaking. One of the hardest thing I've been through. But it was also a dose of courage, of heroic courage. And because it's a reminder that at one point in time, you're going to lose everything. Can't take anything with you. It's going to be gone. Everything. So what do you have to lose while you're here? Nothing, really. I mean, going for what you love, you have to lose time if you spend it just trying to amass money because you feel it's going to make you safe when you have a hidden expiration date. So those are things that help me when it comes to my clients. Whenever they're connected, they're reconnected because it's already present. Whether you realize it or not, you're living your purpose. If you're being just who you are, you're living your purpose. Now, being able to reconnect and articulate that purpose is incredibly meaningful and gives you a lot of resilience and strength and courage. Because it's fulfilling. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it's fulfilling. Yeah. And it feels like you're on the path. So I'll stop talking now, but that was
great.
Thoughts.
I love that. I love that. No, I loved it. And a couple of things came to mind, which was, I love this concept of the impermanence to life, where it's like everything comes to an end. There's nothing you really take with you when you're at the end of your life. And something that I heard from a friend a couple years ago that really changed my perspective, especially when it comes to like a brand building aspect, was it's not that you have nothing to lose, but you have everything to gain. Mm-hmm. And when I shifted my mindset to that, I started noticing that there was more opportunities for abundance and there was more opportunities for cultivating creativity, relationships, building companies, working with the clients that I wanted to work with, because I looked at it from the aspect of, what do I have to gain from this? A new relationship, profit and money to come in to grow the business, to share services. Like, there were all these things that I saw from the business aspect, but also from the relationship aspect that was so important to me as well. The $10 million question, I think, is so powerful. And I think it's really great because it does create this nice illusion of safety. If I do have this money, what would I do with the rest of it? One thing that I find really fascinating that you said was about the creativity to respond to life. And you articulated dealing with your mother's death and accepting that, right? And grieving that and embracing that, but also using that as a means to be very present. Can you talk to me a little bit about when a client or somebody that you work with gets distracted, or they start worrying, or they start, living in the past? I should have done this, or I could have done that. Or they're going into the future and they're going, well, what if this doesn't work out, Pia? What if everything you're telling me right now is like absolute crap? It sucks. How do you bring them back to this present moment where, the mystics will tell you this, spiritual gurus, and even the most successful people in the world will tell you that the present moment is where the true aspect of creativity lives. How do you bring these people back to not have these sleepless nights, so to speak?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to say, as a creative coach, I believe that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. I don't give them answers, nor do I give them advice. I just guide them to their own answers. So they have to bring themselves back. I hold the space and create the environment for it, but they bring themselves back. And often it's through awareness, because you can't change what you're not aware of. It's just not possible. It's just not. So first, it's just about being aware. So if, let's say, those thoughts come through, it's like, usually we all have, and actually it's not even usually, we all have inner saboteurs. The judge, the critic, the perfectionist. They come in different shapes and forms. We developed them when we were children as coping mechanisms to keep us safe. And we're really sophisticated as little people to be able to do this. Thing is, at some point, they outlive their usefulness. And we all have both this inner wise one, this inner Yoda, and inner saboteurs. So sometimes when that comes up, that worrying, whatever it is, pause and say, oh, you can almost tell that there's a different cadence and a different rhythm and a different identity to the voice. And just becoming aware of like, oh, it's interesting. I hear this is, that sounded very fast. Was it yours? Is that what is that? And getting really, really curious about the worry. What is that? What is that voice? What is that voice telling you? Where did it come from? What is it trying to do? So curiosity, awareness, and then curiosity, and then also guiding, do you have other voices within? But really, we all have a beautiful, wise voice, or you call it your highest self, whatever name you want to put to it, your inner CEO. You can give it whatever name you feel most comfortable with, but we all have that. And it's learning to identify what it sounds like, what it feels like in your body, and to connect to it. Because our inner saboteurs will come up usually when we're on the precipice because it's trying to keep us safe. So it's really a good sign. If all of a sudden that inner voice is like, hey, don't do that. Careful. Come back. Get to the couch. Let's watch another Netflix episode. Let's chill. No, you don't want to do that. Like when all of those thoughts kind of get activated, it is because, not all the time, most of the time it's because you're on the cusp of big change. It's a risk you're about to take. And it's at that point, so just being aware that, hey, that voice is going to get activated when you're about to transform, when you're about to change, because it's just trying to keep you safe. That's okay. So how do you want to be, back to choosing your response, how do you want to be with the voice when it comes up? What might it need to hear? What might you need to say? What do you want to choose? Because you can listen to it or not. That's up to you. You got the choice. The voice will come up, the worry, the anxiety, whatever it might be, and you're given a choice. You get to listen to it or not. So that's usually what I take my clients through, and then it's about really connecting to intuition, connecting to that other side, that other part of you that knows, because we all have that. And I had a wonderful coaching supervisor who said, do you know what, Pia? In my experience, and he was like 70, he's been coaching for 40-something years.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, all people are searching for one thing, to know what's right for them.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right? And to know what's right for you is often a feeling that it's cultivating a certain relationship with your inner knowing. To know, yep, that's for me, or no, not for me. And it's usually somatic. It's in your body. It can be a very felt sense. We talk about gut feeling. And so it's about practicing that, strengthening that muscle instead of strengthening the inner saboteur. You get to choose. Yeah,
I love that. And I think this is great for us as we're kind of approaching the back end of our time together. We were talking about trends. We were talking about what's on the forefront. And I love, and just before I get into the last segment of our interview, I love this concept of the inner Yoda saboteur and this kind of dichotomy that we live in, and most of us. And I know for me, at least, I have experienced that many times in my life, where I am so in tuned with what feels right to me. And then I find that the more attuned I get to what's right for me, this saboteur comes out. And it's like, okay, great, you discovered that. Now it's time for you to, as you can see, for those of you who are watching, you see the couch right over my left shoulder. It's like, oh, you can go sit over there and watch on your TV screen, and you've already figured it out. You got in tuned with your Yoda, but just go hang out for a little bit. You're done. And I think it's so interesting that comes up right when you have the breakthrough, the realization, and the key is to kind of push past that. When you get the answer, it's to push past that. So I love that concept, and thank you for sharing that. And also love this. We're all searching for what's right for us. That's kind of the journey of life. I love that too. On the back end of this segment, as we're winding down, as I mentioned before, we were talking about trends, and we were talking about tribalism and community and private community. You had mentioned that, and I have been having a lot of thoughts about this, because what I'm noticing is that it was groupthink in the beginning stages of the internet. Everybody was sourcing the same information, and now with 2023, at the time of recording this interview, we're now seeing Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and the rise of decentralized platforms. We're seeing more autonomy for creators. We're seeing more people trying to figure out ways to get their own people who are all like-minded and build these private communities, whether it's on Telegram or Discord or Signal, you name it. And you had mentioned that you are seeing that. Private communities. You are seeing these coaches and entrepreneurs building that. Talk to me about the rise of this private community. Why do you think this is something we're all going to be focusing on, or maybe not all, but a majority of creators are looking to focus on building the private community?
Well, we can question that. Are the majority of creators doing that? It seems to be something that's on trend.
That's a fair question.
2024, but let's see how that takes off. Because I guess if you think of cohorts or whatnot, there have been these sort of, well, we could just ask what makes a community, but that's a whole other can of worms, because there's a difference between getting a group of people together and actually creating community. And what does that even mean? Is it one person that creates that? No, I would argue it's everyone who has to feel like they're a part of it. And I think that's challenging for a lot of people. How do you actually create a real vibrant, thriving, and giving community? It's not, of course, it has to be facilitated to a certain extent. But what do I see? I see that a lot of people are looking for connection. So instead of having sort of this huge, depth and breadth, it's really getting people that are just like-hearted, like-minded, who really need whatever medicine it is you have to give, and to grow and to share and to develop in a smaller community has a lot of power. Especially given algorithm changes, things way beyond our creators' control. Yeah. It also feels good to be able to have different platforms where you really connect to your people. Even, yes, tribalism, but also just a sense of we're here together no matter what happens, this continues in this way. Because there's a lot of people that I used to connect with I don't even see anymore in X. I don't know where they are unless I actively search for them. And then also, how do I get even beyond the circles that I have, which is with algorithm changes is getting even more difficult. And so I think people just want to have a little bit more control about how they do that, what they sign up for, and also a feeling of safety, I would imagine. That just seems sort of logical, where you're safe to share even more and reveal more and really support each other as you journey together to build, to create whatever the intention of the community is. So that, in one way, makes sense to me. Email is another way, but it's more of a one-way communication, right? So in this way, it's really a dialogue. So I could see that having a lot of potency. I don't necessarily see it replacing big public platforms, but I could see the draw, the pull, and even the necessity for it.
Yeah. I also think that two-way conversations are going to be more emphasized in 24. I really do. I think people are craving to interact with these creators that they follow online. And I think it's also people want to live in their containers of safety. I think one of the main themes that we've had in our conversations is safety. It's really been people are looking for safety, the fear of unknown. Your kind of your spiel about floating on a rock at hundreds, thousands of miles. It reminds me of that like Pete Holmes segment, the comedian, where he talks about that. He's like, nothing makes sense. Like, we're all floating on this rock, going through 250,000 miles an hour through space, rotating around this big fireball. Like, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And every time I watch that, I just like crack up, and I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not that nothing matters, but it's most things that you think matter to you don't matter to you.
Yeah. I think it's nothing matters and everything matters all
Yeah.
at once.
Yes. It's the non-duality piece, right? Where it's, it's everything and anything all at once.
Yeah, and just holding it all. But I really think, like, when you say that, I almost feel like a soothing feeling in my body, because we're making this all up. No one knows. Let's just, like, no one really knows what they're doing. Yeah, some people have more experience and more expertise. I don't mean it on that level. I just mean everyone is trying to figure it out. And sometimes we can give away our own authority by thinking someone else knows, because we feel uncertain about, I don't know, but let me tell you, like, no one knows. Everyone just knows what's right for them, but no one knows, and we're all just here vulnerable, figuring it out, making it up as we go along. So why don't you design and make up and create the most beautiful life art project ever, and whatever that looks like for you, through your business, through whatever means of expression, like through creativity, design that life that has meaning for you, because you got one. I don't know if there are any more. No one knows that, so just chasing what other people have defined as success or power or whatnot is not going to leave you necessarily fulfilled or satisfied, because it's not yours. So the first thing is to figure out, what is yours? What is your definition of a life well lived? And can you give yourself the confidence, trust, and time to create the space to do that?
I love that. That's so good.
And you know what's funny? I just wanted to pull this up because you mentioned Steve Jobs, and we were talking about death and uncertainty and,
Right.
galaxies. He says, remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important.
That's powerful. That is
Right?
That is really good. And then when you look at it from like a brand aspect, it's like, people, I think, overthink brand, and I think they overthink messaging. I think they overthink what they want to do with their life. And they look for that singular purpose, where it's very possible you could have multiple purposes that happen in multiple stages of your life. One of the best analogies of life that I've heard is like it's a movie. It's like a trilogy, right? Or and Arnold Schwarzenegger, I've read his book Be Useful, and it's such a compelling book because he talks about this as his fourth act. The first act was the bodybuilder, the second act was the actor, the third act was the governor, and now he's in this like social media influencer of like the fourth act, where he's carving out the last, at the end of his, at the back nine of his life, so to speak. He's in his 70s, and he's kind of carving out, leaving all of this information that he's gathered over the course of his life to pass it on to people. And he's like, his content's great on Instagram. It's very in alignment with who he is, but he's doing it because he wants to help people. So I think it's such a beautiful way to see things. And I think you brought a lot of light to this conversation. So I want to thank you very much for your time and your energy today. I have one last question for you. On this show, as you know, it's all about authenticity. But go ahead if you have something.
I was just going to say, with Schwarzenegger, he's a keen proponent of visualization.
Yeah.
Right? So I think he's a great example because he's also very intentional. So even when the odds might have seemed against him, he grew up in Austria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Austrian.
It's like in a small town, he had like huge visions for his life and big dreams, and he had a lot of intention and a lot of imagination and courage to just dream the thing. Like, what is it that he wants to do? And what I love to call that is, main character energy. Is like you're not a non-player. Don't be a non-player. Like, step into your main character energy and live it. Like, figure out what it is, like, and what act you're in, and what's coming next, and have fun while you do it. So I think he's super interesting. I think the same for branding and messaging. Like, if it's over orchestrated, if it's overthought, and I do think, and if it's not connected to bigger purpose and values, because that can be the script. When you anchor into what feels purposeful to you, And I do believe the articulation of it might change, but I think the core remains the same throughout your life.
Yeah.
If you craft that and then you connect to what you value most, you combine those two together and they create the breadcrumbs, the map for your life in many ways. So you create your own life manual. And then you add visioning, like, oh, what is it? What is the thing I'm doing? And you add these pieces to your puzzle and you really step into this agency, like you are the creative director of your life. Man, that's empowering. And it then goes beyond, of course, safety and money is important. I don't want it, to sound like, of course, we need to survive. But once we're past that point, that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's like money just enables something. It enables you to do more of what you love. But if you don't know what you love and it's only about the money, you've lost the plot. Because money's not the end goal. The thing that it enables is, the feeling is. And really spending time to get in touch with what that is, whether you're building a brand, a business, or designing your life, and seeing how your business can enable that life is key.
Man, that's so good. I love that, Pia. And what a great way to transition to my last question for you.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I know, and I got to tell you, like this conversation has been very fulfilling and very empowering. So again, thank you. This has been really wonderful. Yeah,
thank you for having me. I feel like we could have been talking for hours, and that's such a great feeling. It's a feeling of connection. Like every question you ask, there's like so many different avenues. And thank you for your energy and for holding such a safe space for courageous exploration.
Yeah, thank you. And that's always my goal is to help as many of you out there right now find what's meaningful to you, and really embracing the power of authenticity and the role that it plays in our lives. And so, Pia, speaking of which, as we wrap up this conversation, I ask every guest this one question, and it's really meant for us to be able to help people answer this question, to integrate this more into their lives. And this question is, what does it mean to you for us to live your truth now?
What does it mean for me, for us to live our truth?
Mm-hmm.
Who's us? The general population?
The people out there, yeah, audience. What does it mean for you to live your truth now?
Yeah, I think the us is the sticking point, because everyone's truth looks different, feels different. And what does it feel for me to live my truth? I actually feel I'm living it. I think it's living my truth. It's a good expression. I'm just breaking it down in my head. What does living your truth mean? Right? So living your truth, living what's true for you, living what feels resonant and right. Then yes. So how do I do that? Well, Mike, you have these big questions I can't answer in a nice little neat bow. What are you doing? Okay, since your last question. So what does living my truth look like for me? Is that the question?
Yeah, let me actually here, I'll restart this so we can fix this out, because I know I'll have my editor take this out. So we like to end every conversation or every interview. We like to end every conversation on the podcast with this one question. And so, Pia, what does it mean for you to live your truth?
To live my truth means being aligned with what feels right and expansive. And that's my word for me. Truth is a big one. So if I'm feeling free and connected and in flow, that's how I know I'm on what my path looks like. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it feels deeply meaningful. And for me, living my truth is unleashing creativity to help build a better world. My vision and purpose are deeply connected to my truth. And it helps me stay on the straight and narrow. It guides me and helpful when times are rough and when the sun is out and when it's storming. So that's what it feels like to me. Expansive. Feels tingly.
I love that.
My body feels open.
I love that. It's so good. Pia, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your energy, and for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate you. And it's been a wonderful conversation. We'll have to have you back on.
Thank you so much, Mike, for creating such a wonderful space. I've so enjoyed our talk. As I said before, I felt like it could have lasted for hours, which is a sign of a great connective tissue conversation. I really appreciate you. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. And again, we will have to do round 2 and dive a little bit deeper, which is so great.
Yes, please.
And thanks to all of you for tuning into this week's episode of Live Your Truth Now. If you like what you heard or you like what you're watching right now, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to this episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Pia, one more thing. Where can people find you? Well, we're going to put the links in the show notes, but I want to make sure you get a quick shout out to where people can track you down.
Thanks for the shout. Collective.studio. Collective spelled a bit differently with 2 Ks, but we'll put it in. That's where you can find out more about what I'm building, about my vision, what I'm up to, and how we can potentially have a chat. I always love having coffee chemistry chats just to see where people are at and how I can support them to unleash their creativity to build the dream, the brand, or their business.
Amazing. And we'll make sure we put those links in the notes. Pia, thank you again. We'll see you all guys next week.